In this story, our protagonist saved an entire village from a monster attack. Because of that, he was recognized in the kingdom as one of the greatest heroes. He even received the princess's hand in marriage. After doing everything for her, the woman simply betrayed him. She chose to stay with a noble knight who was much richer. To make matters worse, that noble was the chief of the knights and banished our hero from the kingdom. With nowhere to go, he heads to another kingdom to work as a monster hunter. On this path, a former fellow knight abandons her noble status and goes after him. I confess that this blonde girl is the main highlight of the story. She exudes charisma and is still deeply in love with the protagonist. Forming a duo, they will try to make a name for themselves in a city. What they didn't expect was that the creatures in those dungeons are much stronger than the ones from the kingdom where they lived. Leave a like, a comment, and check if you're subscribed to the channel. We're trying to reach the goal of 20,000 subscribers. I'm counting on your help. Everything begins here, in a monster's nest. A dungeon where the darkness watches your every step. And from its deep labyrinths, cruel monsters sometimes escape into our world. They bring immeasurable damage to humanity, sowing only terror. People shrink in fear, paralyzed by the threat. The battle is unequal, and amid the blood, everyone longs for heroes who can face this nightmare. Around the Berglund Empire, desolation was already a fact. A mother protects her child, knowing it is the end, and death comes in an instant. But at the last second, a beam of light cuts through the darkness. He asks if they are okay, and the mother confirms while still in shock. The knight says that's good, and asks them to leave the rest to them. He introduces himself as Ash, captain of the 13th Squad, and tells them to run quickly. But he's not Ash from Pokemon. The 13th Squad hope finally had a name. Ash then orders them to annihilate the enemy, and his team charges forward without hesitation. The first beast comes at him with full force. With his eyes locked on the target, he prepares the blade for the strike. The wolf falls, but another threat already descends from the skies. A cry of pain echoes while another sounds like a call to death. Ash dodges by a hair, feeling the impact shatter the ground. He rolls with agility, already preparing for the counterattack. Without his sword, a rake becomes his only hope. He yells for the creature to feel his power, asking if it liked the gift. And with a precise throw, he turns a tool into a ray of destruction. The creature collapses lifeless, impaled by a simple farmer's tool. Ash observes the damage but knows the fight had only just begun. On the other side, his companions were completely surrounded by dozens of monsters. They question themselves, for no matter how many they kill, the enemies simply don't end. The captain shouts for Mary and Will, worried about their situation. He then declares with fury that they will protect the village. They cannot lose. With a war cry, the squad charges with full force against the sea of beasts. Night falls, and under the moon, only the monsters' bodies remain on the ground. With his body exhausted, Ash asks if they finally finished them all. But the shadow of something much greater begins to cover the village. The squad looks up in shock, feeling a chill run down their spines. A gigantic serpent rises before them. Ash faces the monster, recognizing that a boss had finally joined the party. Without warning, the creature unleashes a devastating blast of fire in their direction. Hit directly, Ash can only grit his teeth amid the inferno. And even in flames, he knew he could not give up. Out of nowhere, the serpent devours him, but an energy shield appears to protect him. Inside, he uses all his strength to keep the fangs from crushing him. His companion shouts the captain's name, running desperately to save him. She then focuses all her mana into a single arrow of light, and the shot goes with full power. The arrow hits the creature's eye directly, making it roar in pain. Safe on the ground, he thanks Olka for saving his life. With no time to lose, he charges forward to deliver the finishing blow. With a roar of fury, he unleashes all the power he still has left. His blade falls like lightning, a cut of pure light in the darkness. Under the moon, the beast's body falls split in half, and the battle was finally over. The villagers watch everything, barely believing that they succeeded. And disbelief turns into a cry of victory. They survived the nightmare. The monster outbreak in the Berglund Empire had finally come to an end. And thus the threat was suppressed thanks to the efforts of the 13th Squad. In particular, the deeds of Captain Ash were simply otherworldly. He alone, with his own hands, defeated more than 200 monsters. The celebration was proof that the hell had ended. And for his overwhelming strength, he earned the nickname Ash, the Exterminator. The news of his feat echoed throughout the kingdom. Before the king, in recognition of his bravery, Captain Ash is named. He is officially awarded the title of a quasi-noble. His friends comment that this was an incredible and unprecedented promotion. Now he was a noble, but Ash says he still had one more piece of news. He then reveals to everyone's surprise that he is also getting engaged. Olka despairs and begs him to refuse, but Ash says it's impossible. He explains that the bride is Lady Seyfel, and as a quasi-noble he cannot decline. Ash knows that many things happened at once, and everything seems confusing. But deep down, he feels that every part of it is something good. Ash believed that everything was going perfectly in his life. He was sure he would live a life of glory, or at least that's what he thought. 3 years later, he simply cannot believe what he just heard, and she says coldly that she will repeat it only one more time. With a look of disdain, she declares that the engagement is over. His world collapses and he no longer understands anything. Elsewhere, a man calls him Ash Hearts, captain of the 13th Squad, and with a cruel smile, he expels him from the Order of Knights. Rafi Ragan, his former fiancée, reinforces that their engagement is over. His life, which once seemed perfect, began to fall apart. Desperate, he asks for a moment, wanting to know if he somehow offended her. He remembers changing his clothes and preferences only to please her. Ash even gave up his vices, all for her, and he cannot forget all the gifts he gave with affection. But she says she is tired of dealing with a barbaric commoner like him. She even says she met someone from Account's family who showers her with expensive gifts, and he simply cannot believe the reason is so petty. He shouts that he truly loved her, but she calls him disgusting and greedy. Ash denies it, trying to explain that it was her father who insisted on all of that. She becomes furious at his audacity, now daring to insult even her father. With a final gesture of contempt, she says she no longer wants to speak with a commoner. Then she coldly orders her guards to throw him out of there. In a humiliating way, he is dragged out of the place. While being dragged, he still begs Lady Rafi to at least listen to him. But she only turns her back, saying she never wants to see his face again. Thus, he ends up being expelled from the palace. Walking aimlessly, he feels that something very strange is happening. He thinks that for the Ragan house, breaking an engagement publicly is unthinkable. Suddenly, someone calls him by name. They are knights, and they order him to follow them by command of a superior. Mike Leblav, a knight of the Empire, shouts with a cruel smile that Ash is expelled from the Order of Knights. The shock paralyzes Ash, who cannot process the information. He asks why, and Mike answers that he is just a pebble in his shoe, an obstacle to his advancement and a threat to his position. And then it clicks, he understands that this man is Lady Rafi's new partner. Ash remembers him, his superior officer, Mike Leblav, a spoiled rich kid who only got his position because of his family's name. He wonders if Mike hates him for having been promoted and threatening his place. Mike notices the look of disdain and questions him arrogantly. He confesses that the idea of a commoner earning a noble title has irritated him for a long time, and he mocks the monster incident, saying it was nothing special. The memory of the battle, the blood, and his friend's sacrifice comes rushing back. Blinded by rage, he grabs Mike by the collar without thinking twice. Hatred takes over his body, and he wants to destroy that cynical smile. But Mike warns that with his family's power, Ash's friends would not remain in the squad either. And the threat against his friends leaves him completely powerless. With hatred in his heart, he forces himself to back down, swallowing the humiliation. Mike then asks mockingly if he finally understands the difference between them. He says he will teach him what truly matters to a knight, someone who only knows how to kill monsters. He throws the medal on the ground and steps on it, saying that this is politics, something a commoner could never understand. With a sick smile, he orders Ash to grab his things and disappear by the end of the day. As he leaves, the other knights whisper in disbelief that this was their hero. With a heavy heart, he walks aimlessly, feeling that something is very wrong. He then knocks on the storage room door, ready to return what is left of his honor. Upon entering, he introduces himself as Ash Hearts, bringing the equipment back to the order. The man at the counter greets him with a disgusting smile, saying that the infamous knight has finally arrived. Ash questions why he is being called infamous, and the man says that everyone already knows. He spreads the rumor that Ash was dumped for forcing his fiancée into perverted games. The gossip says he forced the noble Lady Rafi to play mommy and baby. You can imagine what kind of game that was. And in disgust, she sought help from the young master of House Leblav to get rid of him. And the story ends with the noble Lord Mike expelling him for his vile behavior. On top of being dumped, he was slandered. The fury and humiliation leave him completely speechless. He shouts that this must be a sick joke. Overflowing with hatred, he takes out all his anger on the wall, cursing that Mike. Ash simply cannot believe he spread such a low and baseless rumor. He fought so hard to get there, and in the blink of an eye, lost everything he had achieved. But suddenly a familiar voice calls him senpai. Olka runs to him, desperately asking if it is true that he will leave the knights. Olka Eldazane, the only noble in the heart of the 13th Squad. With a heavy heart, he corrects her, saying that in fact he was dismissed. She refuses to believe it and says she still wanted to receive his teachings. Her affection is a small relief amid all the chaos in his mind. He remembers how she grew up, the squad's mascot who became a great warrior. Her shout brings him back to the harsh and cruel reality. With a mischievous smile, she says that if he wanted to play baby, he just had to ask her. If I were him, I'd accept. Ash yells that the rumor is false, but Ulka says that if it's a lie, there's no reason to leave. She asks what will become of the Jaina squad without him, their leader, and the question hits him right in the heart, leaving him speechless. 3 years ago, the village was still rebuilding from destruction. One of the members complains that only Ash was decorated, while they got nothing. Will explains that the Empire doesn't take dungeons seriously. To them, it was just a monster extermination. Even so, Ash intervenes with a determined look. He says that the fact they protected the village and earned the people's gratitude is what truly matters, and that they should be proud of that, even if the nobles don't understand. To remember that battle, he suggests giving the squad a name. Ash then asks Will, the smartest of the group, to come up with an idea. Will suggests the name Janus, an ancient god with two faces, and everyone agrees that the name is perfect, since they fight both monsters and the ignorance of nobles. And that day, under the sun of reconstruction, they became the Janus squad. Ash tells Ulka that even far away, he will always consider himself a member of the squad, and that no matter where he is, his heart will always be with them. She then asks what he will do now that he has nothing left. Ash says he's sick of nobles and might go to a foreign country. Ulka clings to him, saying she will go too, but he stops her with a firm no. He reminds her that she's of noble birth, and her duty is to stay and protect the squad. With a broken heart, she finally understands and agrees with his decision. The girl then asks him to send a letter as soon as he settles somewhere. He waves goodbye, but Ulka insists that he absolutely must not forget. She watches him leave, feeling the weight of that farewell. With a determined look, she promises herself that she will become stronger. He then renounces his title of quasi-noble and abandons the Heart's family name. From that day on, he returns to being just Ash, free from the shackles of the past. And instead of sadness, he feels a weight being lifted from his shoulders. Holding a travel guide in his hands, he plans an adventure. And with a smile on his face, he decides it's time to set out on a new journey. The magic train whistles, announcing its departure. Ash sits in one of the luxurious carriages with a bag at his side. A man wearing an elegant hat approaches, asking for a moment. Ash is surprised to recognize him, but the man recognizes him first. He asks if Ash dropped something, and Ash confirms that he did. The man then asks if it's Ash's first time visiting that kingdom. Curious, Ash asks how he knew, and the man explains. He observed Ash looking at the scenery with such curiosity that he deduced he wasn't from there. The man also reveals that only the rich in the Empire can ride magic trains. Ash settles back into his seat, reflecting on his journey. He realizes he's been traveling for 2 days since leaving the Berglund Empire, and that this is his first time on a magic train, a truly amazing experience. The speed is incomparable to any horse-drawn carriage. The man then introduces himself as a traveler who is also just passing through, and he invites Ash to share the trip, since they both seem to be heading to the same destination. The man laughs and says that in the Rosebell Kingdom, this is just normal transportation, leaving Ash astonished. He explains that the kingdom is a very advanced nation when it comes to magical tools. The Rosebell Kingdom, a place that has always been threatened by dungeons and cruel monsters, and the only thing capable of fighting them was magic, producing fire and water with one's own hands, and even the miraculous art of healing wounded bodies. As a byproduct of magical research, new tools were developed. Thanks to them, the people's lives changed and became prosperous. Through research and development, the Rosebell Kingdom grew immensely, and today it is known worldwide as the Magic Nation. Ash thinks the Empire is backward for neglecting the dungeons. The train then announces their arrival at the kingdom's second dungeon city. A notice asks passengers not to forget their luggage. Upon disembarking, Ash addresses the man respectfully, calling him Sir. A luxurious carriage waits outside the station. Ash thanks him for everything he taught, but the man says not to worry about it. The man then bids farewell, welcoming him to the Rosebell Kingdom. With a smile on his face, Ash confirms that he will enjoy every second. He finally steps into the second dungeon city, the legendary Rosebell Kingdom. The bustling streets and equipment shops leave him utterly amazed. Life pulses in every corner of that open-air market. Carrying his bag, he walks, feeling the energy of the place. But suddenly, a desperate girl runs past him like lightning. Right behind her, a group of thugs shouts, asking how far the young lady thinks she can run. The poor girl runs into a dead-end alley. The gang leader laughs, saying that now she has nowhere to run and that they're going to have some fun. The girl pleads no, terror freezing her voice. The man says that if she behaves, but his words are interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. With a cold look, Ash asks if the guy doesn't think he's had a little too much to drink. The man asks who the hell he is to interfere, but Ash says that's enough, since anyone can see the girl is uncomfortable. The brute gets angry and tells him to shut up, throwing a punch at him. But Ash dodges the blow with an unnerving calm, and in the next instant, he lands a counterattack that sends the man flying. The attacker hits the ground without even understanding what happened. The other thugs freeze for a second, seeing their friend on the floor. With hatred in their eyes, they call him a bastard and decide to attack together. The two charge at the same time, ready to finish him off. Ash realizes they're not just drunkards, their movements show real combat training. But for a former captain, one precise kick is enough to neutralize the threat. The man is sent flying by the impact, screaming in pain before passing out. And with a clean strike to the chin, the last thug also collapses to the ground. In seconds, the alley falls silent with the three of them unconscious. Ash simply adjusts his fists, feeling his body still hot from the fight. But the first one to fall gets up again, now holding a knife. With hatred in his eyes, he swears he won't forgive Ash for what he did. Ash stares at him coldly, questioning if he's really going to draw a blade in the middle of the street. The man doesn't care and charges forward, shouting that he'll kill him right there. But suddenly a voice shouts that that's enough. A knight appears, saying he can no longer ignore the commotion. The knight says that no amateur could defeat a knight, much less one of the Empire's best, Ash Hearts. Ash is surprised by the reunion, but the knight greets him by name, Baal. Baal Baron from the Kingdom's Knights arrests the aggressors while Ash recalls the past. He remembers fighting Baal several times in an exchange tournament. The record of victories and defeats between them was always tied, and that made them great rivals, with mutual respect growing with each battle. At the tavern, they toast to the unexpected reunion. Baal says he rushed there because of the disturbance and didn't expect to find an old friend. With a sip of beer, he asks what Ash is doing in the kingdom. Ash hesitates for a moment, unsure where to begin explaining. He tells the whole story, and Baal laments what happened to his friend and rival. Ash vents, saying the whole situation makes him furious. Baal agrees and suggests that he start a new life there in the Rosebell Kingdom. He then proposes that Ash become a dungeon hunter. Ash is confused, not understanding what a dungeon hunter is. Baal explains that it's a job where one hunts monsters and collects magic stones, and that someone as strong as Ash could easily make enough money to live comfortably. Baal also says he'd be glad if such a capable ex-knight became a hunter. But the conversation is interrupted by a knight who arrives shouting for Sir Baal. He reports that a monster outbreak has occurred in the dungeon, a life or death emergency. Ash asks, alarmed, "What do you mean, a monster outbreak?" Baal says they've already requested help from the association, but he doesn't know how many hunters will show up. With a serious look, he calls out to Ash, and with a confident smile, he invites him to fight alongside them once more. An outbreak, the moment when monsters go berserk and leave the dungeon to destroy everything. Ash remembers the destruction, the pain, and the lives lost. He knows he has to act. With his decision made, he looks at Baal and says he understands, he'll fight. He's happy to battle beside his friend again and says he won't be a burden. They arrive at the Hunters Association, a place full of warriors of all kinds. One of the hunters anxiously asks for news from the knights. The knight announces the arrival of Captain Baal and asks if they're going or not. The situation is chaotic, showing how serious the threat is. Baal asks a woman named May to explain the details of the situation. She reports that blue gorillas were spotted on the 10th floor, 300 of them. Baal concludes that it will definitely turn into a large-scale outbreak. May then asks who the stranger is, and Baal introduces him as his friend Ash, who will join the defense. She looks at him suspiciously and says he doesn't look like a knight or a hunter. Other hunters approach, asking if he has any combat experience. But Baal assures everyone that he personally vouches for his friend's skills. With no time to lose, he tells them to hurry and head to the dungeon. They arrive at the entrance of the second dungeon, the battlefield. Baal then offers weapons and armor, and Ash thanks him for the great help. Ash says he prefers something light and a longsword, but Baal has something much better for him. He then hands him a magic sword, a weapon Ash has never seen before. Ash asks what makes it different, and Baal explains that it's a fusion of technology and magic. With special functions built in, he hands Ash a magic stone to test its power. Without knowing what to expect, Ash fits the small gem into the sword's guard. At that moment, a blue aura bursts from the blade, leaving Ash completely shocked. Baal explains that its power is tremendous, multiplying cutting strength many times over. Ash understands that a magical weapon completely changes the way one fights. Now that everyone is ready, they declare it is time to enter the darkness. On the first floor, the rule is simple: the monsters are divided by level. And on the second floor, they already feel the pressure, as the danger increases with every step. Baal explains that the strategy is to hold the monsters at a barricade on the next floor. But the third floor surprises them, a colossal artificial structure where there should have been a cave. Baal says that dungeons are full of mysteries, but they'll have to explore that another time. For now, the focus is on killing monsters, and the sealed staircase is the perfect place to take position. But suddenly, the barricade begins to be crushed by brute force from the other side. Baal shouts that they've arrived, and the anti-monster gate won't last much longer. So he calls Ash to battle, and the two charge forward together toward the imminent slaughter. With a loud crash, the barrier explodes into 1,000 pieces. A horde of blue gorillas invades the hall, their eyes glowing red with pure fury. Baal yells that their weak point is the head, and Ash understands immediately. The first creature charges with a savage roar, ready to crush him. But with terrifying calm, Ash realizes they're not that fast, and with a single strike of his magic sword, he cuts the monster in half effortlessly. The other hunters stare in shock, unable to believe he did it in one blow. Ash looks at the blade, feeling that the cut was as smooth as a hot knife through butter. Baal laughs proudly and asks if he finally understands the power of the magic sword. With a smile, Ash realizes that with this weapon, he doesn't even need to aim for the weak point. The monster's body flies and smashes into the wall, but even on the brink of death, it lets out one last defiant growl. And suddenly, the creature lunges again, even with its body completely destroyed. Ash understands instantly. The sword destroys the body but not the magic stone in the chest. Bale warns that these monsters are stubborn, and Ash realizes this will take some effort. So he stuns the monster with a kick, creating an opening for the finishing blow. And with a precise slash, he destroys the magic stone once and for all. On the other side, Bale cuts through the beasts with a grin, knowing their hides are worth a fortune. He explains that they're highly sought after by nobles for making winter clothes. The hunters are amazed, since blue gorillas are not weak monsters. They ask who the hell that mysterious helper beside Sir Bale is. The knight who knew him from the Empire reveals his identity. Ash the Exterminator. The knight who once stopped a monster outbreak all by himself in his homeland. He tells them that the number of monsters Ash defeated that day was over 200. And the hunters realize his strength is worthy of a true hero. The knight concludes that if Ash fights on equal footing with the captain, he's as strong as one of the 10 blades. Ash wonders what the 10 blades are while slicing through monsters non-stop. And he remembers it's the highest title a knight can achieve in the kingdom. The knight proudly confirms this, removing his helmet. He says every knight dreams of reaching that level of strength and recognition. Ash teases his friend saying he's gotten stronger, but Bale fires back just as confidently. Like two flashes of light, they dance amid the chaos, clearing the hall on their own. Bale says he's now even more certain that Ash needs to become a hunter. At the end of the battle, they look at the bodies on the ground and congratulate each other on a job well done. The hunters are left speechless. The two of them alone defeated 300 monsters. And the only thing left for the others to do was absolutely nothing. Back at the association, they prepare to receive their reward. The clerk is shocked by the amount, 600,000 rousel. Bale comments that a top hunter earns that much every time they enter a dungeon. With a smile, he officially invites Ash to join this new world. Bale looks at him seriously and asks if he wants to become a dungeon hunter. May joins the invitation, begging him to accept the offer. With a faint smile, he finally agrees to the idea. Then he shakes Bale's hand and firmly declares that he will become a hunter. The entire association celebrates the decision, thrilled with their new and powerful ally. To celebrate the new beginning, Bale proposes a grand welcome party for the new hunter. A few days later, back at the headquarters of the Imperial Knights, a knight approaches Miss Ulrika, saying that a postcard has arrived for her. She thanks her and takes the letter with a spark of curiosity. She wonders who could be the sender of that unexpected postcard. With a mischievous smile, she already imagines who it is. With her heart racing and eyes gleaming, she whispers her senpai's name. The news travels quickly through the knight's headquarters. She smiles in relief, glad that her senpai seems full of energy in his new life. Then she reads the location, the second dungeon city of the Rosebell Kingdom, and a plan begins to form in her mind. Mirai comments that Ulka seems happy and catches her hiding the letter. She turns and sees her two squad mates, Mirai and Will. She asks if they've finished training, and Mirai confirms with a yawn. The girl says that things haven't been the same since Ash left. Ulka then reveals that he became a hunter in the Rosebell Kingdom, and they ask how she knows. She says that she received a letter and that it seems he's making a living by hunting monsters. Mirai wonders if being a hunter pays well. Will, analyzing the situation, says that from the letter, Ash doesn't seem to be having any difficulties. He concludes that it's an easier job than being a knight and enduring prejudice, and that maybe this hunter's life is the one that suits Ash the most. With a determined smile, Ulka announces that she's leaving the Order of Knights. They ask in shock if she's going after Ash, and she confirms without hesitation. Will then reveals that he's also leaving to take care of his family's business. Mirai complains that everything will be so boring without them and then makes a decision. She declares that she'll also become a hunter since it seems fun to work with Ash. Mirai asks where in the kingdom Ash is, and the atmosphere grows heavy. With a dark smile, Ulka reveals that he's in the second dungeon city. That's because she wants to go alone, since she has other intentions with our hero. Mirai gets excited and invites her to go together, but Ulka says she'll go after talking to her family. They understand her decision and then prepare for the final act. Together, they declare that from that day on, the 13th squad is disbanded. The next morning, he returns to the Hunters Association. May greets him cheerfully with a good morning, calling him Mr. Ash. She asks if he's there to register, and he confirms with a smile. The girl gets super happy, says his performance was amazing, and even flirts with him. She then hands him a form to fill out his information. With a quill in hand, he finishes the registration in an instant. May takes the paper and says she'll process it, asking him to wait a moment. A few minutes later, she returns with a box saying that the wait is over. She explains that the license is used to control who enters and leaves the dungeon. Ash understands that it's a safety measure, allowing him to explore with peace of mind. May then warns that all materials found must be turned into the association. He's surprised by the rule and she explains that it's forbidden to take hides to make coats. And the most important rule, hunters cannot renounce their citizenship in the kingdom. He asks about traveling and she replies that it's best to avoid it. With the license in hand, she congratulates him and welcomes him to the association. He thanks her with a confident smile and promises that he'll do his best. Then he returns to the entrance of the second dungeon. The guard at the entrance asks if he's requesting access to the dungeon. Ash confirms and shows the license, asking them to check his information. With access granted, he thanks them and prepares for his first official hunt. But as he enters, he accidentally bumps into another hunter. The impact makes his license fly away and fall to the ground. The hunter apologizes and bends down to pick up the card. Seeing the beginner's mark, he mocks Ash, pointing out his lack of experience. He then advises him to stay on the lower floors if he doesn't want to die. Ash doesn't understand the attitude and wonders what kind of person that is. But he ignores it and, focused on his goal, declares that his hunting career has begun. With firm steps, he enters the dungeon's darkness. On the first floor, he feels the relief of finally being able to explore at his own pace. Out of nowhere, he hears a sound and notices a monster approaching. Two young hunters celebrate the small achievement of getting a magic stone. Ash observes them and, curious, asks what they're doing. One of them answers with a smile that they're fishing for slimes. He explains that it's just a matter of throwing a vegetable into the water and waiting. And like a fish, the slime approaches to eat the bait. Carefully, he pulls the creature out of the water, and with a single stab to the core, the monster is defeated. And in the end, a small magic stone is the reward for the work. Ash understands that slimes are docile, perfect for earning easy money. He realizes that the monsters around there don't seem very strong, but he knows the deeper he goes, the more dangerous it gets. The boy advises that if he's skilled, he should go straight to the 10th floor, and Ash thanks him. But the young hunter extends his hand, with a look Ash doesn't understand at first. He then charges for the information, telling him not to play dumb. With the money in hand, he leaves with a sarcastic thanks for the business. And Ash realizes that just like the slime, he was also hooked by the boy's smooth talk. But he doesn't mind much and decides it's time to move on to the next floor. With a smile, he moves forward eagerly to discover what monsters await him. Elsewhere, the group of arrogant hunters faces a desperate situation. Completely surrounded, they know they have no chance of surviving. On the 4th floor, the scenery changes completely into a vast open field. Ash is surprised by the landscape and understands that each floor has a different setting. Even though he's underground, he sees a blue sky and a shining sun. A noise in the tall grass catches his attention and he spots a creature. A small rabbit with a horn appears, a cute creature in the middle of danger. But the animal charges at an absurd speed and attacks without warning, though he manages to dodge. Ash immediately understands that cuteness means nothing, so he defeats the monster quickly. With the first hunt completed, he prepares to continue his journey. He then takes out a book to discover the name of the creature he just defeated. Horned Rabbit, a very literal name for the monster's appearance. Ash reads that the materials to be collected are the horn and the magic stone. Carefully, he stores the magic stone and the horn in his bag, and he realizes that the magic bag he bought is truly amazing. But the buying price for the materials is so low that he feels discouraged. He concludes that it's not worth fighting them and decides to go to the lower floors. But out of nowhere, he finds himself completely surrounded by dozens of horned rabbits. The horde charges mercilessly, and he runs desperately, begging for a break. After a few incidents, he finally reaches the 9th floor. And without major problems, he advances calmly until the 10th floor. Finally, on the 13th floor, he takes a deep breath, feeling that he's already very deep. After fields and forests, he comes across a dark and damp cave. Suddenly, a scream of terror echoes from the depths of the darkness. Frightened, he runs toward the sound, feeling danger in the air. And there he finds the hunters from the entrance, surrounded by an army of skeletons. He recognizes the group and wonders what they're doing so deep inside the dungeon. A skeletal warrior charges with its sword raised, ready to strike. In the blink of an eye, Ash moves and shouts for them to be careful. And with a precise strike, he blocks the skeleton's deadly attack. Ash asks if they're okay, and the hunter replies yes, still in shock. He stares at the enemy, a skeletal warrior unlike any he has seen before. With no time to lose, he charges forward with his magic sword and destroys the creature. The skeleton's body explodes into pieces with the blade's impact. But even shattered, its red eyes continue glowing, it's still alive. Ash wonders if the weak point is the head and attacks with all his strength. With the enemy finally defeated, he breathes in relief. But suddenly the skeleton's body begins to rebuild itself. He wonders if that thing is immortal since it should already be dead. The huntress then shouts that he needs to remove the magic stone from its chest. He understands instantly that's the monster's true weak point. The skeleton charges again, ready to attack with all its fury. With the magic sword, Ash dodges and counterattacks with a horizontal slash. He crouches with agility, preparing for the final attack. With his free hand he lunges forward to tear out the magic stone from the monster's chest, and with a precise pull he rips out the skeleton's power core. He shouts and asks if the monster liked the surprise. The skeleton then falls to the ground, finally defeated with no chance to regenerate. Ash finally understands how to defeat those creatures. With a confident smile, he knows the fight just got much easier. He then charges into the middle of the skeleton army without any fear, and with his magic sword he destroys the cores one by one with precision. Like a whirlwind of light and death, he clears the cave all by himself. With the threat contained, he finally breathes in relief. The group thanks him deeply, saying that he saved their lives. The leader then recognizes him, the rookie they met at the entrance. He apologizes for underestimating his strength, but Ash wants to know what happened. He explains that the dungeon was quiet and they decided to go deeper than usual. Their confidence led them into the darkness, not knowing what awaited. And suddenly skeletal warriors emerged from the shadows and attacked them. One of their companions, Sammy, protected them but ended up gravely wounded. They fought with everything they had, but the numerical disadvantage was too great. The wound was severe and the woman despairs as she sees her friend bleeding non-stop. Ash approaches and asks if Sammy is okay, worried about the situation. The woman explains that the injury hit the nerves and that his life is in danger. Suddenly the cave shakes and a terrifying noise echoes from the depths. A new army of skeletons appears, larger and more threatening than the previous one. Ash steps in front of the group, protecting them from the new threat. He realizes the situation is dire. They are at a huge disadvantage. The huntress yells for him to be careful, but the attack is already unavoidable. With no time to think, they all charge in his direction. Even if not that powerful, they are extremely resilient. Amid the chaos, 3 skeletons merge together. He notices that the skeletons revive too quickly and that he must focus on the magic stones. So he shouts for the group to grab the injured and run as fast as they can. And with a spinning slash, he clears a path for the hunter's escape. With his sword in hand, he prepares to hold the horde alone. But there are too many and he knows he won't be able to hit every magic stone. Completely surrounded, the situation becomes increasingly desperate. He wonders what to do, the pressure crushing him with every second. But suddenly an idea flashes through his mind. A last hope. He remembers buying a long sword and a chest plate before entering the dungeon, and that the merchant had gifted him an extra item, just in case. A smoke bomb made with materials that repel monsters. The seller said it would come in handy in a tight spot, and Ash wonders if it will really work. He searches desperately for the bomb in his pockets, time running out. With a relieved smile, he finally finds the small artifact. With no other choice, he throws the bomb on the ground, betting everything on that one chance. A bright light explodes, blinding the skeletons and filling the cave with smoke. One of the monsters grabs her in midair, but it's already too late. The smoke explosion spreads and he wonders if that will work on the undead. With a sigh of relief, he sees that the skeletons have stopped moving. Then he shouts for the group to run, leaving the celebration for later. Now safe, they finally stop to breathe and assess the damage. Ash notices that the hunter's arm might be lost and offers to help. Carefully, he makes an improvised bandage to stop the bleeding. But he knows that if he doesn't act fast, the man will die, so he decides to use a potion. He pours the liquid into the hunter's mouth, their last hope to save him. With the bleeding slowing down, they decide to carry the injured man to the surface. Night is already falling over the dungeon city, and the urgency grows with every second. They reach the association, shouting for a doctor, desperate to save their friend's life. Ash watches from afar, knowing he's done everything he could. Now it's up to the doctors. The group's leader apologizes and says he'll pay him for the help, but Ash refuses, saying that it's natural for people of the same profession to help each other. An hour later, the doctor finally comes out to give the news. He says that if it weren't for the potion, the hunter would have died, and the woman thanks him in relief. The doctor warns that he couldn't save the arm, but they know that having his life spared is enough. And they decide they'll find a job for their friend if he can no longer be a hunter. Ash watches the scene with envy, missing his own companions. He wonders what his friends from the Janus squad are doing now. A month later, the waitress asks why he still hasn't joined a group. One of the hunters invites him to join the Muscleheads group, but Ash says he's fine alone. Another hunter comments that even the famous Golden Knight invited him to join. Ash finds the leader of Golden Knight annoying but admits the guy is skilled. One of the hunters mentions that a named monster is prowling the 14th floor. Ash asks what a named monster is, and he explains that it's a rare kind. The headless knight Dullahan appeared and caused total chaos. They warn Ash to be careful, and he understands that would be too much for him alone. Suddenly, the sound of heels catches the tavern's attention. One of the patrons points and tells his friend to look at that stunning woman. Her beauty draws everyone's eyes, leaving a trail of admiration through the bar. The Musclehead hunters try again to convince him to join their group. But suddenly, 2 hands cover his eyes and he feels a chill run down his spine. That voice, he would recognize it anywhere, even after so long. And when he turns around, he sees her, the beautiful Ulka, in a dazzling white dress. With a radiant smile, she says that she finally found him, her dear senpai. Later, he questions her in surprise, wanting to know what she's doing there in Rosebell. She replies that it's obvious, she came to follow him. He asks about the knights and she says she quit because without him it made no sense. He's shocked, remembering that she's from a baron's family. With a smile, she reveals that she cut ties with her family, which makes him choke. She says that her father told her she'd have to defeat him to leave. And with a proud smile, she says she beat him until he couldn't take it anymore. She then says that she also became a hunter so she could stay by his side forever. What that blonde girl won't do for love, huh? The confession catches him off guard and he's completely speechless. With a smile, she says that she can be both a hunter and his wife at the same time. With his heart in his hands, he asks if she has feelings for him. He thinks that if she says yes, he'll surely end up falling for her too. But the memory of betrayal haunts him and the fear of being deceived again paralyzes him. He then covers it up, saying it's nothing and trying to change the subject. Ulka calls him softly, noticing the pain in his eyes. She holds his hand gently, feeling how much he's hurting. Angrily, she says that the ugly tramp left a scar on his heart. She then comforts him and promises she'll never leave his side. With eyes full of determination, she swears on her own life. And she says that from now on he doesn't have to be anyone's toy anymore. After sitting on his lap, she suggests they leave things as they are until they can understand their feelings. Ash is shocked by her attitude and wonders if she's always been like this. Embarrassed, Ash says it's better to go back to the inn and she eagerly agrees. On the way, he asks if Ulka has already found a place to stay. He then points toward his inn and the two walk together. They stroll under the stars, the night covering the city with a veil of silence. But as he climbs the stairs, he realizes she's following him. And when he stops at his door, he sees her standing right behind him, waiting. He then opens the door, still not understanding what's going on. It hits him and he panics as he realizes her intentions. He wonders why she's there and with all her luggage no less. She explains that she asked at the association and came straight there to show she's serious. She approaches, saying that from now on they will always be together. And in a passionate whisper, she calls him senpai, stealing all the air from his lungs. It leaves him completely speechless, his heart beating uncontrollably. The scene shifts to the next morning and we're already curious to know what happened. Ash wakes up and sees her sleeping beside him, realizing he managed to restrain himself. I hate it when the meat falls on the vegan's plate. With a sleepy smile, she greets him and says good morning in a soft, teasing tone. She teases him, saying that he held himself back well during the night. With a seductive look, she says that she's in no hurry and will wait for his time. He blushes with embarrassment, but she swears that one day she'll make him take the initiative. Then she hurries him, saying they both need to go to the association to get her license. Ash sighs, feeling that at this rate he'll end up with a serious case of insomnia. Back at the association tower, a hunter's routine begins. He asks if they should finally get her license, and Ulka agrees excitedly. Upon arrival, they find May, who greets them with a warm good morning. Ulka returns the greeting with a provocative smile, leaving May shocked. The girl grits her teeth in anger at seeing her new rival show up so early. With a cynical smile, May asks them to wait a moment. Ash senses the tension in the air and asks Ulka what happened. She explains that May seemed interested in him, so she gave her a little warning. Furious, May throws the license onto the counter, and Ulka thanks her mockingly. The clerk glares at her with fury and swears she won't lose to her. Ulka responds in kind, saying she can do whatever she wants. And the sparks flying between the two leave Ash completely embarrassed. He then tries to break the tension and calls Ulka to finally head to the dungeon. Ash explains that with her skills they can go to the deeper floors. On the 10th floor, the real hunt finally begins for real. Ash spots a group of blue gorillas and asks Ulka to handle them alone. The creatures notice their presence and prepare to attack. With fury in their eyes, the horde charges forward at terrifying speed. But Ulka remains calm, and with her bow in hand she takes precise aim. And with a shot of pure energy she hits the first monster dead on. Ash watches from afar, impressed by her strength and skill. With incredible agility she grabs 3 more arrows at once. And with her aim locked on the targets she prepares for the next attack. The rain of light arrows cuts through the air, mercilessly destroying the monsters. Ash praises her quick shots and precision, noticing how much she's improved. But the remaining monsters leap into a surprise aerial attack. He then shouts for her to switch to close combat. With a dagger in hand she charges forward with wild fury in her eyes. And with a somersault she slices off the monster's head in a single strike. And to finish she uses the creature's own strength to slam it against the ground. Ash praises her close combat skills, noticing how much she is trained. With a victorious smile she celebrates and says she's taken them all down. And proudly she says she's a student he can truly be proud of. At the end of the day they leave the dungeon satisfied with the results. He praises her again and she asks him to praise her even more. He then suggests that the next day they try going to the 13th floor. but one of the young hunters comes running shouting his name. He arrives breathless and Ash asks what happened to cause such panic. And the news drops like a bomb. The Dullahan has finally appeared. The news spreads quickly and the city is thrown into a frenzy. A huntress trembles in fear, traumatized by her encounter with the monster. Ash asks what happened to the rest of her group. And the answer is the worst possible. More than 10 people were killed. With a heavy heart he approaches the girl and asks her to tell him what happened. She says that the monster's sword appeared out of nowhere, and in an instant everyone died. Ash asks about the sword but the girl stammers, unable to speak. He realizes she's in no condition to talk and the situation grows more complicated. Olka says they need to recover the bodies but May doesn't understand why. She explains that it's not for burial but to analyze the wounds and understand the monster. May says it would be useful to question her but the shock was far too great. The girl is taken away by the guards and the last hope for information goes with her. Ash understands that without knowing how the Dullahan fights they can't form a proper team. May says that the last named monster required all the elite hunters to take it down. The association will assemble a team but they'll need hunters to escort them. But everyone knows that if they encounter the Dullahan on the way, they'll be in serious trouble. The memory of the wounded hunter and the pain of his companions weigh heavily on his mind. He then calls out to Miss May, his decision already made. And firmly he volunteers to escort the recovery team. The next day in front of the second dungeon the life or death mission begins. The rescue team gathers, their destination is the 14th floor. One of the hunters asks what to do if they encounter the Dullahan and Ash says to run. The other hunters mock him, saying that if it were them they'd take down the monster easily. Ash worries and says that the mission is dangerous and that Olka can wait at the inn, but she refuses, saying that she won't be a burden and that she knows how to fight. With eyes full of determination he declares that it's time to depart, and with a battle cry the team charges together into the darkness of the dungeon. On the 13th floor, tension hangs in the air. The darkness makes it almost impossible to walk. Out of nowhere, skeletal warriors appear, ready to block their advance. Ash takes the lead and tells them to focus on the magic stones and move forward. He then asks Olka to try hitting the monster's cores with her arrows. And with a rain of light arrows she clears the path with deadly precision. One of the hunters praises her incredible skill, impressed by her strength. And he concludes that with Olka handling the skeletons, the journey will be smooth. But suddenly, an overwhelming presence freezes everyone's blood. The team runs through the dark caverns, the sound of their steps echoing in the darkness. And at the end of the path, they come upon a scene of pure horror. 2 hunters try to fight but are mercilessly slaughtered. It's him, the headless knight, the legendary Dullahan in the flesh. His flaming sword seems alive, thirsting for destruction. One of the hunters tries to block the blow, but the force is overwhelming. Fear paralyzes the man, who can only scream before being consumed by the flames. The monster's power is so absurd that he doesn't stand a chance. With a single strike, it wipes out everything in its path, leaving behind fire and death. Ash doesn't understand. The monster shouldn't be on the 14th floor. The Dullahan's sword burns with supernatural intensity. The bodies of the hunters and their armor melt as if made of wax. Ash wonders how they can fight against such destructive power. And the worst happens, the monster finally notices their presence. The team leader shouts for everyone to retreat. The mission has become a nightmare. But he notices something strange, and fear gives way to curiosity. The Dullahan isn't chasing them. It's just watching from afar. With sword in hand, the headless knight waits patiently. Ash doesn't understand, but a familiar feeling begins to take hold of him. The monster drives its sword into the ground, a gesture he knows very well. He recognizes the etiquette of a duel between knights, an invitation to battle. The memory of his duels with Baal reminds him of the honor in a fair fight, an honorable battle against a powerful enemy. A challenge he cannot refuse. With a smile of pure excitement, adrenaline rushes through his veins. The thrill of a fight where a single blow can decide everything. Something he hasn't felt in a long time. But Olka grabs his arm, trying to bring him back to reality. She reminds him that everyone's safety is the priority now. He agrees, but the temptation of battle still burns in his eyes. As they move away, the Dullahan remains waiting, motionless like a statue, and the hunters comment that only knights could ever take down a monster like that. Olka stops him midway and tells him to look at his own face. She says that he's smiling, and he realizes his insane desire for battle. He knows that a single wrong move would mean death, but adrenaline consumes him. With a twisted smile, he wonders if deep down he actually wants to fight that thing. Back at the inn, night falls and the city sinks into silence. Olka takes a bath, the hot water relaxing her tense muscles from battle. Meanwhile, Ash sits on the bed, the weight of the decision crushing him from within. The image of the Dullahan won't leave his mind, the desire for battle consuming him. Hours earlier they had returned to the guild, and May analyzed the hunters' bodies, searching for answers. The flaming sword, the cause of death, the only clue they have. The hunters despair, for there's no way to defeat such a monster. May suggests abandoning the bodies. The mission has become suicidal. A hunter says to call the knights, but May explains that they can't. And Ash concludes that if the knights can't act, the hunters will have to deal with it themselves. May then turns to him, the weight of the world on her shoulders. And with a trembling voice, she asks if he would be willing to face the Dullahan. The invitation catches him off guard, but the thrill of battle returns with full force. Ulka notices his hesitation and grabs his arm with concern. He looks at her, inner conflict written all over his face. With a firm voice, he asks for some time to think, to clear his head. May agrees and says that the decision is his, but that time is running out. Back in the present, Ulka steps out of the bath, steam swirling around her like mist. She calls to him softly, noticing the anguish in his eyes. She approaches and says that she wants to talk to him about something important. With his heart in his hands, he asks what it is, already imagining what's coming. With all the courage he has, he confesses that he wants to fight the Dullahan. He explains that it's not out of duty or obligation, but of his own will. He then begins to tell Ulka to stay, but she interrupts him. With a hand over his mouth, she stops him from finishing the sentence. She questions him, saying that's her line, and asks why he always does that. She squeezes him, saying that it hurts her, that he thinks she wouldn't go with him. And she reminds him that during the outbreak in the Empire he said the same thing, that she could die and therefore didn't need to go with him. But with a determined smile, she reminds him that even then, she followed him anyway. He tries to argue, but her determination is unshakable. She says that he's not going to die and that she won't lose to a fake knight. "Alright girl, but stop hitting me." And with a gentle touch, she reminds him that she promised never to leave his side. She then lays his head on her lap and says it's more fun to think about what they'll do after the victory. He suggests a fancy restaurant with the reward money, a peaceful moment. She likes the idea but has other plans in mind. With a mischievous smile, she says she wants a reward just for herself. He gets flustered, but she insists, wanting his promise. And with no way to refuse, he agrees, sealing the pact between them. The next day, they go to the forge, searching for a way to face the flaming sword. Ash asks if a thick shield would withstand it, but knows it would be too heavy. He explains that the only chance is to use speed to attack and retreat. Ulka worries, saying their armor and swords will melt in the flames. The blacksmith then says that if they melt, they should just treat them as disposable. Ash understands the message and realizes that's the only way to fight. Then, the two return to the 13th floor, ready for all or nothing. And there he is, the Dullahan, waiting in the same place as before. In the same spot, with an army of skeletons and the hunters' bodies at his feet. Ash notices that more corpses have been added to the macabre pile. With his backpack on, he prepares for what's to come. He tightly secures the bag to his waist, every movement calculated. With everything in place, he declares that he's ready for battle. And with a battle cry, he and Ulka charge forward into the fight. The two separate, Ash on the ground, Ulka in the air. With her bow in hand, she fires an arrow of pure energy. But the Dullahan blocks it effortlessly. The monster's strength is absurd. Ash leaps over the monster, looking for an opening to attack. With a spinning strike, he tries to hit the knight from behind. But he notices that the monster isn't activating its flames, which puts him on alert. The Dullahan grabs him by the neck and hurls him away with brutal force. And with a devastating blow, it shatters Ash's sword into pieces. The sheer impact makes him think defeat is inevitable. But Ulka shouts for him and fires an arrow to distract the monster. The shot hits squarely, giving Ash the time he needs. She asks if he's okay, and he confirms, already standing up. He realizes the Dullahan is enjoying the duel and still hasn't used all its power. With a new sword in hand, he prepares to continue the duel. The Dullahan faces him, the blue flame in its neck burning intensely. The two blades clash, the sound of steel echoing through the cavern. They lock eyes, measuring each other's strength in a silent standoff. Ash charges forward, delivering a vertical strike with all his strength. The monster braces to defend. The force of the impact creates a shockwave, sending sparks flying everywhere. He realizes that, as he suspected, the Dullahan isn't using the flaming sword. The two dash in opposite directions, preparing for the next strike. Ulka positions herself to assist, but Ash stops her, telling her to wait. He understands this isn't an ordinary monster, there's something different about it. The way it fights, its movements, everything resembles a true knight. With an idea in mind, he decides to test his theory. He introduces himself as Ash, a former Imperial Knight. And to his surprise, the Dullahan understands and responds to the gesture. With a precise movement, it performs the salute of the Knights of the Rosebell Kingdom. Ash understands everything. The monster responded with a knight's salute. And with a smile on his face, he confirms that the Dullahan is truly a knight. He then shouts for Ulka not to interfere, the honor of the battle is his alone. With blood boiling, he declares that he'll fight the knight as an equal. Ash faces the Dullahan and says it's a shame he can't ask for his name. But with eyes full of determination, he swears to honor the knight's strength. With a battle cry, he charges into the duel that will decide his fate. With a precise strike, he hits the monster's chest with his magic sword. The Dullahan's armor cracks from the impact, but it's not enough. Ash realizes the monster is tough and that he needs more strength, so he decides to attack without stopping, searching for an opening in the knight's defense. He unleashes a series of rapid strikes, testing the enemy's limits. And with each blow, the Dullahan's armor breaks apart bit by bit. With a smile, he realizes the monster isn't as invincible as it seemed. The Dullahan then touches its chest, feeling the crack in its armor. It drives its sword into the ground and an aura of fire explodes around it. The ground trembles and the entire cave is swallowed by flames. A wave of fire surges forward and the Dullahan prepares for the true massacre. Ulka screams in terror. The flaming sword is finally unleashed. Ash understands that the game is over and a smile of excitement appears on his face. For the Dullahan, the true battle begins now, without honor or mercy. Ash charges into the flames, but the intense heat strikes him head-on. He feels his skin burn, the pain reminding him that this isn't a fair duel. The flaming sword nearly hits him and the infernal heat licks at his body. With his sword in hand, he braces himself to block the fiery strike. But the heat is so intense that his sword begins to melt like butter. The Dullahan charges in with a final blow, ready to end it all. Ulka screams in despair, watching her beloved about to be consumed by fire. But with a confident smile, Ash reveals that he has a plan. With a swift motion, he tosses the melting sword aside. The Dullahan stands confused, the crack in its chest still exposed, and Ash reveals his trump card, a countermeasure he had prepared. A magical storage device holding an arsenal of swords. He then challenges it, asking whether it will burn every sword or break the magic stone first. With a new blade in hand, the real battle finally begins. Our protagonist brought a bunch of spare swords. Now that's preparation, folks. With a smile on his face, he says it's time to find out who's the strongest. He leaps in with 2 swords, charges in for a double strike. The Dullahan faces him, the blue flame burning with renewed fury, and with surprising agility it dodges and counterattacks with precision. The monster throws him to the ground, the knight's strength overwhelming him. The Dullahan readies the final blow, the flaming sword raised high. But Ash doesn't give up, and with both swords he manages to block the strike. The force of the impact drags him backward, the pressure nearly crushing him. He pulls away and with a swift motion readies himself for the next round. He throws away the melted sword, only 4 remain, and with a leap he drives the magic sword into the Dullahan's chest. He tosses the sword aside, now only 3 remain. With a quick movement he grabs another and charges with all his strength. The Dullahan strikes him with a fiery blow, sending him flying. Ash is shocked, the monster's power is far greater than he imagined. The explosion hits him full force, the pain consuming him entirely. Ulka screams in despair, watching her beloved engulfed in flames. But he stands again, his body burned but his determination unshaken. With the last sword in hand, he knows it's all or nothing. He prepares for the final strike, the last attack that will decide the battle. The Dullahan charges, the flaming sword ready for the massacre. The monster unleashes a spinning slash, a wave of fire consuming everything. With a somersault, Ash prepares for the final attack. And with eyes glowing red, he shouts that it's time to end this. He charges through the flames, the magic sword glowing with blue light. And with a precise strike, he hits the magic stone in the Dullahan's chest. The impact creates a shockwave, but the stone doesn't break. The monster staggers backward, the hit destabilizing it for a moment. Ash realizes he couldn't shatter the stone, and only 1 sword remains. The Dullahan faces him, the blue flame in its neck flickering for an instant, and with an unexpected gesture it pulls its own sword from its chest. It then throws it toward Ash, an act of honor amid battle. Ash doesn't understand but catches the sword, feeling the weight of the weapon in his hands. The Dullahan extends its hand, a silent request for him to accept the gift. With a handshake, the exchange is sealed, a pact of respect between 2 warriors. The monster then points to its own chest, the magic stone glowing brightly. Ash understands the Dullahan is asking him to end it. He knows that if it were human, that strike would have already been fatal. With his blood boiling, he realizes the time for fun is over. With one final farewell, he bids goodbye to the Black Knight, a warrior like no other. And with one last strike, he destroys the magic stone, ending the knight's suffering. The Dullahan's body collapses to the ground, the blue flame fading forever. With a sword in hand, he stares at the lifeless body and declares that it's finally over. Back at the association, the news spreads like wildfire. And everyone celebrates, shocked that the fearsome Dullahan has finally been defeated. With the monster's sword on his back, they celebrate the improbable victory. The other hunters congratulate him, amazed by his strength and courage. But May interrupts, shouting for him not to store the armor in the bag. She reminds him that he needs to keep everything intact until the knights arrive. May takes command and orders them to contact Sir Baal and prepare the largest room available. Ash comments that after defeating the monster, things have only gotten harder. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice calls out, congratulating him on his great achievement. Ash turns and sees Bale, asking if he came just to check the materials. Bale explains that materials from named monsters are valuable and require witnesses. He says it's a great feat, and that they need to inspect the items. The Dullahan's armor and sword are displayed, imposing and full of power. One of the knights examines the armor, amazed by its craftsmanship. He confirms that it's the armor of the Black Knight Dullahan. Bale takes the sword and says that while the armor is valuable, the sword is a rare find. And with a gleam in his eyes, he reveals that it's a magic sword. Ash is shocked and asks what a real magic sword actually is. Bale explains that it's a weapon that doesn't require magic stones to function. He says it's the 5th time such a sword has ever been found, a historic discovery, and that Ash might even receive a letter of gratitude and a great reward. He then asks the two of them to write a report about the battle, and the knight explains that the armor and sword will be sent to the Research Institute. Ash feels confused, not knowing what this institute is. May explains that it's a royal organization that uncovers the mysteries of magic and monsters. With the reports in hand, Bale turns to Ash with one last question. Bale asks what the Dullahan was like, his eyes fixed on the armor, and Ash answers without hesitation, he was a true knight. Bale confirms his suspicions. The armor resembles that of ancient knights, and he wonders if it's possible for a dead human to turn into a monster. Bale laments not learning the knight's name and asks if he was strong. With a respectful smile, Ash confirms that yes, he was very strong, and he concludes that the Dullahan was a great knight of the kingdom. May congratulates them on their excellent work. The reports are finally ready. It's already night, and after all the paperwork, they can finally rest. Ash suggests going back to the inn, but a lively group is already waiting for them. The hunters shout that it's time to celebrate and that the two heroes finally came out. Ash and Ulka exchange looks, seeming not too excited. The whole tavern celebrates, the victory over the Dullahan uniting everyone, and with mugs raised high, they toast to courage and life. One of the hunters says that from now on, Ash will be known as the Dullahan Slayer. With a sip of beer, Ash thinks that's a much better nickname than Exterminator. The hunter then asks if they've already decided on a name for their group, and the question catches him off guard. The memory of his old comrades flooding back. The memory of the Janna Squadron and the pride he once felt for that name. With a smile, he says that the name was decided a long time ago. Ulka looks at him with a smile and confirms that this is their name. The other hunters are confused, the bewilderment clear on their faces. And with pride, Ash and Ulka declare that they are the Janna Squadron. Meanwhile, at another station, a new train approaches, and with an excited jump, Maria celebrates that she's finally reached her destination. She looks at the city, happy that the train ride wasn't so bad after all. With an eager smile, she gets ready to meet her friends. She dreams of becoming a hunter and making lots of money with her friends. And with the cash, she plans to drink, gamble, and live the life she's always wanted. With a backpack on her shoulders, she finally arrives at the Hunters Association, and her beauty catches the attention of a group of ill-intentioned hunters. With disgusting grins, they surround her, ready to harass her. She then goes to the counter and says she's looking for someone, and she asks about a hunter named Ash who came from the Empire. The attendant says there's no one by that name, and Maria's shocked, and she realizes she's been tricked. Ulka sent her to the wrong city. With rage in her eyes, Maria shouts that that damn woman lied just to be alone with Ash, and she swears with fire in her eyes that she won't let her $1,000,000 plan die. She asks where else there's an association, and the attendant replies that there are 2 more. With her teeth clenched, she decides to try the nearest city first, but a tear rolls down her cheek as she realizes she doesn't have money for another trip. Desperate, she shows the little money she has and asks if it's enough for a ticket. The attendant says it isn't, and despair takes over her. Out of nowhere, a voice calls her and she turns to see who it is. It's the same men who harassed her earlier, offering to help. With a disgusting smile, one of them grabs her arm and says there's a price. With a weary sigh, she knows what she needs to do, and with a precise punch, she sends the first thug to the ground. The others are shocked, unable to believe the strength of that girl. With glowing eyes, she charges forward with incredible speed, and with a powerful kick, she takes down the second brute effortlessly. The last one calls her a bitch, but it's already too late for him. With a devastating punch, she knocks him out before he can even react. And in the end, only the bodies of the 3 idiots remain on the floor. But the first one stands up and, full of rage, swears she'll pay for that. But she dodges easily, her patience has run out. With a precise kick, she sends him flying, his body soaring like a feather. And with one last blow to the chin, she knocks him out for good. She turns toward them, her face red with anger and frustration. With hatred in her eyes, she tells them to get lost and not annoy her again. The attendant is impressed by the girl's strength, barely able to believe it. With a smile, she suggests that if Maria needs money, she could become a hunter. and the idea shines in her mind, a new hope emerging amidst the chaos. With a determined smile, she swears that she'll make a lot of money and go after her friends. Meanwhile, 2 days after the battle, Ash and Ulka walk through the city. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice calls them, and they turn to see who it is. Bale appears and explains that he's escorting the Dullahan's armor and sword. With a discreet gesture, he calls the two closer, ready to reveal a secret. He tells them that an inscription was found on the Dullahan's armor, and the inscription revealed that he was a member of the kingdom's knights who never returned from a dungeon. Ash then asks if he too will turn into a monster if he dies in a dungeon. Bale says the Institute will investigate and that the armor and sword will be useful for research. He says his goodbyes and tells them that the association will deliver the reward for the subjugation. Ash and Ulka then decide to return to the association and claim the reward. May awaits them, holding a tray full of money and a smile on her face. And the amount leaves them speechless. 5 million, a fortune. Ash does the math and realizes that with this money, their lives are set. And to make things even better, May promotes them to exclusive hunters of the city. Ash asks if that's a big deal, and she confirms they'll receive special treatment. With a smile, she asks them to keep crushing monsters just like that. Back at the inn, night falls and the city sinks into silence. Ash drinks alone, unsure of what to do with so much money. Out of nowhere, he hears light footsteps approaching in the dark, and a soft voice calls him Senpai, breaking the stillness of the night. Ulka hugs him from behind and reminds him of the reward he promised. Embarrassed, he confirms that he remembers, his heart racing out of control. With a seductive smile, she invites him to bed, ready to claim her prize. He hesitates, his body trembling with her closeness, and without thinking twice, she pulls him into a tight embrace. She lays him down on the bed, and with a loving look, prepares for the moment. Her face moves closer, his heart pounding like it's about to burst. He blushes in embarrassment, unsure how to react to the situation. She then hugs him and tells him to place his arm that way. With her head resting on his chest, she looks up at him with a smile. And in a soft, playful voice, she says she wants to use his arm as a pillow. He asks if that's all, and she says she wouldn't mind if he did whatever he wanted. She says she promised to wait, but asks if that's unfair to him. With a smile, he says no, that he's the unfair one in the story. And with a tight embrace, he pulls her close, their warmth blending together. He then says that she's precious and asks her to stay by his side. With her face red, she agrees and promises she'll always be with him. And that night, under the stars, they seal the promise of a future together. A week later, the hunter's life continues. Each day a new battle. As the Janus Squadron, they live their lives on the front lines. And now, the skeleton warriors of the 15th floor are no longer a problem. With renewed confidence, he asks what awaits them on the next floor. And without fear, they decide to take a look at what the darkness hides. The 16th floor surprises them, a vast, endless desert. The landscape stretches as far as the eye can see, a horizon of sand and stone. They wonder if that place is even inside a dungeon. The vastness is surreal, and with each step, they're reminded how mysterious dungeons truly are. Out of nowhere, a massive creature appears in the sky, a winged predator. The bird dives at high speed, claws ready to strike. With quick reflexes, he readies himself for battle, sword already in hand. And with a precise slash, he deflects the attack. The creature then fires a barrage of razor-sharp feathers, an almost impossible attack to defend. He's surprised, noticing they didn't come directly at him. But when they hit the ground, the feathers glow with a bright light. And in the blink of an eye, they explode, sending Ash flying. They realize the creature uses magic, and the situation is more dangerous than they thought. The bird lets out a sharp cry, preparing for its next attack. Ash yells for Ulka to run, but a mysterious voice interrupts him. With a confident smile, a woman says this is their chance. And suddenly a group of hunters appears, ready for battle. The woman charges forward with incredible speed, her sword glowing with a purple aura. With a precise slash, she cuts through the monsters, clearing a path through the horde. And with a spinning attack, she wipes the area clean, displaying overwhelming power. Ash and Ulka are stunned, not understanding what's happening. The woman shouts for the group to keep advancing, and with amazing coordination, the hunters attack in perfect sync. The archer fires an energy arrow, opening the path for the assault. The white-haired warrior charges in with a spinning slash, her blade slicing the air. And the last hunter finishes the creature with a precise strike. Ash and Ulka are amazed, that group's strength is from another world. The woman then turns to him and says it's been a while. Ash recognizes her and thanks her for saving their lives once again. And suddenly the woman kisses him, leaving him completely speechless. Ulka is shocked, her eyes wide with jealousy and rage. With a smile, the woman says the pleasure is all hers and leaves him marked with her lipstick. Ulka jumps in front, shouting for her to stop that. She asks what the woman thinks she's doing and pushes her away from him. The blonde is furious at the whole scene, and with a look of disdain, she asks who the hell that woman is. The woman introduces herself with a smile, saying it's been quite some time since they last met. In the tavern, the atmosphere grows heavy. The tension between the two is almost tangible. With a smile, the woman introduces herself as Tanya Sandor, much to Olka's displeasure. Ash explains that she's the leader of the group Goddess's Blade, a noble hunter. He asks if she wasn't visiting her family, and she confirms that she just returned today. Ash asks if she's heard about the Dullahan, and she says it's a shame. Olka gets irritated, saying she doesn't even know how strong that monster was. Ash reveals that Tanya was one of the ones who defeated the named monster years ago. With a smile, she says she became a hunter to earn fame for herself. Olka then asks how such a distinguished noble woman knows her senpai. Ash explains that she once invited him to join her group, but he declined. With a seductive look, she says she still hasn't given up on having him in her team. He knows that joining her would make hunting much easier, and the offer leaves him thoughtful. Amazing how this guy keeps rejecting every waifu. I'm starting to think he swings the other way. And with a seductive smile, Tanya offers her body as part of the deal. Olka is shocked by the audacity and demands to know what the hell she just said. Tanya says he could earn money and have her at the same time, but Ash says that's not the point. Blushing, he stands up and says he needs to go to the bathroom. But Tanya follows him with a look that says their talk isn't over. She slams the table and Olka stands up ready for whatever comes next. With fire in her eyes, she warns that if Tanya touches her senpai, she'll kill her. Tanya laughs and says she's the jealous type, which only makes Olka angrier. She then approaches Olka and says she doesn't want just Ash. And with a whisper, she reveals that she wants the girl too. Olka freezes, completely shocked and speechless. Tanya says all the kittens in her group are satisfied with her technique, and the thought of what the other members of that group do only deepens Olka's shock. I think you get what kind of activities go on in that group. With a disgusted look, she calls her a shameless demon. Tanya says she doesn't hesitate to use every weapon she has to get what she wants. Olka trembles with rage but refuses to be intimidated by her provocation. And with the same intensity, she declares that she won't lose to her. Tanya snaps her fingers and an army of waitresses appears. With the entire tavern as their stage, the battle is about to begin. She then proposes a drinking contest to settle the score once and for all. Ash tries to stop the fight, but the two are already chugging their mugs. Mug after mug, the contest grows more intense. With flushed faces, they demand another round, their stubbornness taking control. Ash tries to stop Olka, but she tells him to shut up and stay out of it. He then declares that's enough for today, but Tanya says he owes her one. With a smile, she says she'll wait for him, no matter how long it takes. But Ash cuts her off, saying she'll wait for nothing. His decision is final. Tanya laughs and with a challenging look, prepares to leave. With one last wave, she says goodbye and walks away with her group. With a drunk Olka on his back, he carries her through the dark streets of the city. She murmurs his name and asks him to hold her tightly. And with a slurred voice, she says she won't let anyone take him away. Under the starry sky, he keeps walking, her way to comfort amid the chaos. The next day, a mysterious man asks them to tell him about the Dullahan. Ash doesn't understand, the man seems to know more than he lets on. He introduces himself and congratulates them on their great achievement. With shining eyes, he asks what it was like to cross swords with the monster. And with the same excitement, he turns to Olka, wanting every detail. With a barrage of questions, he leaves them both completely stunned. Ash wonders who this man is and what he wants from them. Ash asks the man's name, still trying to process the situation. He introduces himself as Edgar Baluna, director of the Research Institute. Ash and Olka are shocked, a high-ranking noble and a director. Edgar says he saw the armor and was fascinated by what he found, and that he couldn't just sit still, he came to speak with them personally. Ash senses the incredible energy emanating from him, a power unlike anything he's felt before. With introductions made, Edgar lights a cigar with a snap of his fingers. A small flame flickers from his fingertip, and the smell of tobacco fills the air. Ash and Olka are speechless, pure magic before their eyes. With a puff of smoke, he reveals himself to be a mage, and with the smoke swirling around him, he asks them to tell him everything about the Dullahan. Time passes and the story of the battle is told in full detail. With the report finished, Ash says that's all he knows about the monster. Edgar listens carefully and praises them both for their excellent work. He then asks for Ash's opinion, curious about his conclusions. With a firm gesture, he puts out the cigar and says he agrees with Ash's hypothesis. But Ash still doubts, wondering if it's truly possible for a dead human to become a monster. Edgar reveals that before meeting them, he investigated the 14th floor, and with a lantern in hand, he explored the area where the Dullahan was found. And in the middle of the darkness, he found something that would change everything. He says he found the remains of countless knights. fused with the dungeon walls turned into bone and dust. Ash and Ulka are shocked, the macabre image leaving them speechless. Ash asks if those were the Dullahan's comrades, and Edgar confirms. He then asks if they know about mana, the source of all magical power, and that dungeons are saturated with that energy, a cradle of power. And if an ordinary sword is exposed to that mana, it transforms into a magic sword. Following that logic, it's possible that bodies exposed to mana become monsters. The two fall silent, the terrifying theory making more sense than they'd like. With a smile, Edgar asks if they don't feel the romance in that. Unraveling the mysteries of magic and dungeons, the truth the kingdom has long sought. Ulka then asks if he explored the 14th floor alone. Edgar laughs and says of course not. He brought his assistant and hunters as an escort. Out of nowhere, a man bursts in, shouting Sir Edgar's name. The director recognizes him and asks why Sergio is in such a hurry. Edgar laughs and says he only wanted to ask Ash about the Dullahan. Bale explains that when it comes to dungeons, Edgar always acts on impulse. Ash comments that he heard about how to make magic swords, and Bale is shocked. He asks Ash to keep that an absolute secret. It's valuable information. Edgar then says he's heard interesting things and that they should move forward with the matter. Bale invites them to come to the association the next day to settle a few things. Ash and Ulka don't understand, but curiosity gets the better of them. The next day, the association tower gleams under the morning sun. They arrive and find May waiting for them with a smile on her face. Ash asks if Bale has arrived yet, the air of mystery making him anxious. Suddenly, an imposing figure radiating brilliance enters the room. Kyle, the leader of the Golden Knight, apologizes for the intrusion with an arrogant smile. And right after him, Large Talon, the leader of the Muscle Squad, also appears. And to complete the trio, Tanya, the leader of the Goddess's Blade, makes her striking entrance. Ash asks if Bale called all of them, and the leaders nod in agreement. Tanya concludes that if all the elite groups are here, things must be serious. Her presence still keeps Ulka's nerves on edge. Edgar arrives with a cheerful good morning, saying it seems everyone's here. Kyle asks what the plan is, gathering all the strongest hunters in the city. Edgar unfolds a map and explains that named monsters have been appearing more frequently. He shows the reports, powerful monsters that have ravaged the dungeon, and the strangest part, they've only appeared in the city's second dungeon. With eyes gleaming, he announces they'll conduct a large-scale investigation, and that's why all the elite hunters were summoned there. With a hand over his chest, he asks for everyone's cooperation for the mission. Ash looks at the leaders, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Bale explains that the mission is to escort the knights to the deepest floors. Large Talon is astonished, the 20th floor, an unprecedented mission scale. May assures them that the association will provide everything, and that the investigation starts in 2 weeks. Tanya then asks if participation is mandatory. Bale confirms, saying the order came from the Queen herself, surprising Tanya. The Muscle Squad tries to relax, saying with so many hunters, it'll be a piece of cake. But Bale warns them and asks what the deepest floor they've reached is. The leaders reply, the 18th to 17th, none have gotten close. And Ash admits he's still exploring the 16th floor. Bale says the real problem is the 19th floor, a cursed place. He reveals that every investigation team sent there was massacred. Tanya is shocked and asks if even knights with magic armaments didn't survive. And Bale confirms, a monster beyond anything they've ever seen awaits. The Lizard King, a legendary creature haunting the dungeon's depths. In a moment of peace, Ash and Ulka enjoy an afternoon coffee. With a smile, she offers him a strawberry, asking him to open his mouth. He feels embarrassed, but her affection completely disarms him. Blushing, he opens his mouth, and she feeds him with a smile. And in that small gesture, the tension of battle gives way to pure sweetness. With a red face, he says the cake is great, and she beams with joy. Out of nowhere, the sound of horses catches his attention. They see a caravan of knights passing through the street. Ash notices they're bringing the equipment for the investigation. Ulka worries whether everything will go well, but Ash reassures her. He comments that they've already saved up a good amount of money, and she asks what he'll do with it. After paying the bills, he says he wants to buy something. With a smile, he reveals that he wants to buy a big house with a backyard. Ulka loves the idea, already imagining space for weapons and equipment. But he says that's not all. She'll also want a room just for herself. The idea catches her off guard, a room just for her. And her imagination drifts far away, a love nest for the two of them. He asks if she didn't like the idea, and she denies it with a trembling voice. With her heart racing, she says she's very, very happy. And with excitement, she says that's one more reason to finish the investigation quickly. On the day of the mission, the city is in turmoil, everyone preparing for the worst. One of the hunters points out and draws attention to a group approaching. It's Tanya's group, the Goddess's Blade, the only one that has ever reached the 19th floor. And right behind them comes Kyle's group, the Golden Knight, with their imposing presence. And to complete the lineup, the Muscle Squad Talon and Large, with their steel-like bodies. And last but not least, the newest and most promising group, the Janus Squadron, led by the fearless Olka. And beside her Ash, the legendary Dullahan Slayer. The hunters feel safe, with so many elite groups gathered. Nothing can go wrong. But one of the knights grumbles, saying they weren't enough and needed help. The provocation doesn't go unnoticed, and the tension between the groups rises. The Muscle Squad gets irritated, saying that's not something to let slide. Ash tries to calm things down, but the fight is already inevitable. Large Talon mocks, asking what they were doing while the Dullahan was on the loose. Ash tries to intervene, but the knight continues, calling the Dullahan a fake knight. He says it was pure luck, and that the knights alone could have handled it. The provocation is the last straw, and Large Talon challenges him to a fight. The knight accepts the challenge and, sword in hand, charges forward. But he doesn't attack the hunter. Instead, he goes for Ash, catching him by surprise. With a spinning slash, he tries to strike the former knight, but Ash dodges. And with a precise kick, Ash knocks him to the ground, showing his superiority. The knight gets up, pride wounded but rage pushing him onward. He admits Ash isn't bad and lunges again with a strike full of brute strength, but Ash dodges once more and counters, disarming him with ease. With his eyes glowing red, Ash reveals his true power and knocks him out with a single punch. The knight falls to the ground, pain and humiliation consuming him completely. The other knights prepare to attack, their magic stones glowing. With a click, they activate their sword's power. The blades ignite with blue energy, ready for battle. Ash tries to intervene, saying that's enough. Out of nowhere, a powerful voice roars, and the pressure in the air freezes everyone in place. The two knights are paralyzed with fear, sweat dripping down their faces. And Marquis Orlano appears, furious that they're causing trouble. With a firm slap to the head, he calls them idiots and puts them in their place. Bale approaches, and Ash asks who that man is. He explains that it's Roy Orlano, the captain of the Royal Capital Knights, the strongest knight in the kingdom, one of the legendary 10 Swords. The Muscle Squad is awestruck by the captain's presence. The Marquis apologizes for his men's behavior, saying they're young and hot-headed. He then says the investigation is the Queen's wish, and asks for their cooperation. The hunters agree, their admiration for the captain overcoming any resentment. With a pat on the shoulder, he praises Ash's skills. And with steady steps he enters the dungeon, his presence inspiring everyone. Ash is impressed, that man is the very image of a true knight. And with a battle cry, Bale orders everyone to advance for the mission. On the 14th floor, the team moves forward cautiously. Hunters and knights move in perfect sync, ready for any danger. Ash notices that they're at the rear, far from the front line. With so many knights and magic weapons, they should reach the 16th floor without issue. But suddenly a familiar voice shouts, calling for Ash and Olka. They turn around, the voice echoing through the dark cavern. Edgar appears, running, shouting that the situation is a major problem. Ash asks what happened, the urgency in the director's voice putting him on edge. They follow after him, a growing sense of dread setting in. Edgar leads them to the wall where the knight's remains had been. He shows them the smooth wall, saying that where there had been bones, now there's only stone. Olka asks if that's really the place, but Edgar confirms without hesitation. Ash doesn't understand, and Edgar says there's only one explanation. With a gleam in his eyes, he reveals that the dungeon is constantly changing. Ash is shocked. The idea of moving walls seems impossible. With a smile, Edgar says dungeons are fascinating, full of mysteries, and with the mission underway, they continue the exploration. But along the way, a surprise attack catches them off guard. A flock of monstrous birds swoops in, the sky filling with predators. Kyle shouts to protect the non-combatants. The battle for survival has begun. The creature fires another barrage, but this time they're ready. The Muscle Squad is horrified by the monster's disgusting magic. Olka says it's the perfect chance to test their strategy, and Ash agrees. With a battle cry, she fires a concentrated energy arrow. The shot stuns the creature, leaving it vulnerable for a moment. With eyes burning red with fury, Ash charges for the finishing blow. And with a spinning slash, he cuts the monster down, ending the battle. The hunters cheer, praising the duo's teamwork. Olka smiles, happy that their plan worked and their coordination was flawless. Ash prepares for the next challenge and tells them to keep up the pace. And with the battle over, they all congratulate each other on a job well done. Bale thanks them and says Ash saved their lives once again. The Marquis approaches and asks the names of the two heroes. With a smile, they introduce themselves. Ash and Ulrika, the Janus Squadron. With a nod, he praises their movements and says he'll remember them. With the Marquis walking away, the tension in the air finally dissipates. Bale comments that the captain liked them and that he doesn't judge by class or birth. And with a smile, he realizes that calling the two of them for the mission was the right decision. With the path clear, they prepare to move on to the next floor. And with a shout of command, Bale leads them to the 17th floor. Ash says it's their first time there, and Olka agrees with a smile. Tanya warns them to stay alert and says it in a very serious tone. She explains that the monsters on that floor are on another level. On the 17th floor, the scenery changes to a dark swamp. Ash notices it's a bottomless bog, and Tanya warns them to be careful. Ulka moves forward cautiously, bow in hand, and senses sharp. Out of nowhere, strange bubbles rise from the water and the tension grows. And from the depths, a giant crocodile emerges with savage fury. Ash prepares for battle, knowing that's the floor's monster. With a sword strike, he attacks the creature, but the blade doesn't pierce it. He's shocked. The monster's skin is as hard as steel. Lizardmen, fearsome creatures with impenetrable scales. Tanya explains that their scales are like steel and brute force won't work. With a sharp screech, the monster calls for reinforcements. And in the blink of an eye, dozens of lizardmen rise from the water. Ash realizes the monster is summoning more of them, and despair starts to creep in. Bale then orders the magic archers to prepare for attack. With a command, he tells them to fire everything they've got. A rain of energy arrows falls over the monsters, lighting up the darkness, but even the magic bows can't pierce the creature's defenses. The horde advances, and the numerical disadvantage throws the knights into panic. One of them starts cursing the monster, thinking that'll do any good. A lizardman lunges at the arrogant knight, ready to finish him. With a precise strike, the creature hits his shoulder, blood spraying. The knight screams in pain, the wound leaving him vulnerable. The monster grabs his arm, ready to drag him into the water. With his sword stuck in the ground, he tries to hold on, but the creature's strength is too much. Ash yells for him to hang on and rushes in to help. Tanya shouts that the weak spot is the throat, and he gets the message. With his aim locked on the target, he prepares for the final strike. And with a precise attack, he hits the monster's throat, the blade piercing its flesh. The lizardman falls into the water, life fading from its body. Ash helps the knight to his feet and asks if he's all right. He carries him to a safe spot and orders immediate treatment. The knight apologizes, saying he didn't know hunters were that strong. With a pat on the head, Ash says it's time for the counterattack. And with the leaders at the front, the true battle finally begins. And that's how we wrap up the first part of this story. If you want a continuation, leave a like and comment Monster Hunter. I'll recommend 2 more videos that I'm sure you'll love. See you next time, everyone.